But I think that the important part here is that you don't become defeated because you slip. You know, that you don't personalize the idea that this little enemy here wins a few times. And that, you know, it's like if you're playing an opponent who makes a great shot, if you're a good sportsman, you can look over the net and say, you know, that was a really good shot. You got me that time, but I'm still committed to beating you. Yes?
I can't stop thinking about the fact that you said when you get OCD, okay, and I'm not going to this room tonight, so I get that.
I want you to know I'm Simon Legree when it comes to...
When you say that somebody gets it, you said there's a high level of anxiety, do you mean that that person may not have gotten OCD if they had never reached that high level of anxiety? Let's say with me, with having my fourth baby and having chickenpox at the same time. Just, that was it, and I've never been right since. Okay, now, if I had the chickenpox or her, or, you know, not both at the same time, would I never have had that?
That's too hypothetical.
You can't adjust those things more likely than going to happen. But the only way to get over it is with behavioral stuff.
Getting over it is really, yes, exactly. That's what I'm really attuned to. You know, not where does it come from or how could I have avoided it.
Behavioral and, if necessary, medication.
Yes?
You mentioned that genetically, you know, inclined to get something. Is OCD genetically transferred?
I think that they're going to be able to pinpoint everything, you know, in the next 10 years as being genetically transferred. Like the fact that you asked that question as opposed to stay quiet is genetically transferred. So when you get into that level of genetically transferred stuff, I think it becomes kind of meaningless. And I don't really give a damn whether or not the fact that I'm wearing a blue shirt today is genetically transferred. It's just something that I choose to do, and if I have some problem in life, I'm not really going to be concerned whether it was genetics or not, because that doesn't say, well, if I say, oh, it's genetics, I definitely don't want to say, that means I have to live with this for the rest of my life and not do anything about it.
But don't OCD people have a tendency to kind of thrive on that theory?
Yeah, I would, okay, this, you know, I do like this about Obsessive Compulsive Anonymous. You're not to blame for this disorder. There's nothing that you've done, that your parents have done. There's nothing about having this disorder that implicates anything, you know, about ineffectiveness or inadequacy, because we're all fucked up on this planet. And whether you get OCD or bulimia or depression, well, I don't want to get into that. Well, you know,
Oh, that's eating.
we're all nuts, and we all take our nuttiness in different forms. You know, it's not like there are these OCs and everyone else is normal. I hate when my clients say normal people. You know, it's like we're not and they are, and boy, it sucks that we're not normal. Because when you have OCD, you'd be as nutty as I am in a different way.
Right.
And then what? You know?
Too bad you can't take a blood test or something to find out if you have it, though. You know what I mean? There's no way of really knowing if you have it, you know what I'm saying?
Have what, OCD?
Sounds like you're talking about a social disease.
Yeah, no, yeah,
You really do have it.
it doesn't matter whether you have it, it matters how you deal with it. Yes?
I have like a two-part kind of question. This might be already asking a question that was asked, but can OCD be passed on genetically, and what is the possibility of someone with OCD giving birth to a child who then has OCD? What, statistically?
I think that if I were obsessive compulsive and I wanted to have children, I would say to myself, there's a good chance that if I don't provide this child with an environment of risk-taking, a philosophy of living with ambiguity, and a real tolerance to emotional distress, that he may get OCD. And to me, I don't think that having OCD is worth saying, well, I'm not going to have children, because I think it's very treatable. And I think that if you're sophisticated as a parent,
And educated enough for the disorder?
and educate the child enough about not the disorder. Smoke's getting to me.
Read last month's newsletter.
You might appreciate last month's newsletter
Yeah.
written by a woman who had children. She was very worried about that.
Well, it's one of the obsessions, too. I mean, to even consider it in making a determination like that is an obsession. Because you're allowing this thing to make a decision. You're afraid to take a risk. You're afraid that the 1 out of 100 possibility, or 1 out of 10,000, or 1 out of 1,000,000 could come true. And so you refuse to take any risk whatsoever, keep yourself safe, and don't experience anything. If you look at your OCD, you will find that you make a lot of choices in your life based on keeping yourself from certain things like this happening. So if you ruminate on whether or not you should have kids because you have OCD, then that's another obsession that you've developed.
So it's almost like if I'm asthmatic and I fear passing that, it's the same type of
Well, what you're doing is you're trying to control life. One of the things about obsessive compulsiveness that the more you live with it and the more you understand it is that you are trying, the person who has it is trying to control everything around him or her. There are people who overtly use it, and they're described as having an obsessive-compulsive personality. They're very dominating. They make sure somebody doesn't put the papers on the table in front of them and all these other things. And then there's others of us who are much more sneaky about how we control the things around us. But we make all the decisions on the side with no ambiguity. What he's talking about is ambiguity. Life is ambiguous. You can walk downstairs out the door and get killed, or you can walk downstairs out the door and not get killed. The obsessive-compulsive person will be worried about walking outside the door. A person who is not obsessive-compulsive will walk through the door, and whatever happens, happens, and then deal with it. An obsessive-compulsive person is always trying to figure out how they can deal in front. How can I control that? How can I make sure it doesn't happen? How can I, And so all of your time is spent worrying in front, controlling in front, never taking a risk, and you've brought yourself into a situation where all you can do is worry.
But even the word risk, I mean, obviously that's a scary word right there, but, if I was going to have a child and it's a risk to have a child, this child might have OCD, this child might get OCD, is it worth that risk?
Well, the thing is,
might get other things as
yeah,
well.
yeah. The thing is that there's something very natural about having children. There's something that, happens to people that they just decide. Whether you want to talk the biological time clock or a lot of things. There comes a time in most women's lives, and it could be from age 16 to age 40, when you just say, I'm not afraid of childbirth, I just want a child, and you don't think about all the what-ifs. If you're what-ifing, you're not in a place where you can do it. You can say, what if labor's bad? What if this? What if that? As long as you're what-ifing, you're not going to do something. You have to decide on doing something and take the risk.
Freely.
Yeah, freely. And what he's talking about learning here is the ability not to have to know in front everything. Maybe the kid's going to have one green eye and one blue eye. You can't control that.
So the risk is that minor or that major as much as you...
Yeah, but you're the one that makes it major or minor. The whole thing that's going on with OCD that you have to understand in order to get better is that we are the ones that give these what-ifs the importance. Everybody else around us is looking at us saying, what the... when did that become an issue? You had your 4 kids without even thinking about it. I had 2 without thinking about it. I would hope to God I would not have ever let that come into denying me the kids. When you look at it that way...
Can I say something on that? I'm sitting here and I'm just like dying, because to me, if somebody knows they have OCD, get it fixed before you start thinking about having kids. That is all I can tell you, because that is...
And it's fixable?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Why do you say that?
You don't have enough time tonight for me to tell you.
It's not just affecting yourself, your OCD, now you have
You
others.
think you're obsessive now? Wait.
I just want to say that one of my objectives is helping people identify their genuine desires And